Let's move on to 1998. You played Sherry in Rounders opposite Matt Damon, Edward Norton. We understand this was a relatively closed set, so we aren't at liberty to go into too many details. But what can you tell us about your experience on that production?
It was pretty amazing. It was at the height of Matt Damon's sort of success.
How do you
So there was
like
a
them
lot of
apples?
buzz around it.
Yeah.
He was exploding, you know. So I didn't know what it was going to be like. John Dahl works in a really interesting way. He likes to rehearse, which is unusual. Not you, sort of you just sort of usually go to the set. There's not really a rehearsal time. You go to hair and makeup, and then you come in there, and you may run it once. They put you on your spots or your markers, and that's pretty much it. He wanted to rehearse first, and so before they even sent us to hair and makeup, they called us all to set. It was a closed set. It was freezing. It was a dead winter, freezing, and I was wearing you. I mean, you know what that part was, right? So I came in sweats, like sweats, baseball cap, no makeup, and I'm 5 feet tall, right? And I'm very tiny, and I'm standing next to John Dahl, and I see him look down at me, and I see him look back, and then he's like, did I cast a cheerleader? He was like, what? I was like, no, I skank up really good. I'm telling you, I skank. So he right away, he was just so relaxed and so calming. And one of my favorite things about that set was there was this one moment where they had like a technical difficulty. And it was a little complicated. So we had a little downtime that was unexpected. It ended up being a 16-hour day. It was really crazy. But this particular moment, I saw him sitting sort of by himself in his director's chair, and I was like, I'm going to go over there. So I went over. I was like, hey, John. And he sort of looked at me like pleasantly surprised. He's like, yeah. I said, I have a question for you. He goes, shoot. I said, why did you cast me in this role? And he just sort of cocked his head to the side. He goes, good question. He goes, strong choices. Never forget that. Strong choices. And since then, I have asked almost every director I have ever worked with, why did you cast me? And it is some iteration of those words.
That's such a good thing for actors to do. I'd never
Yeah.
even considered that. That's such a
Yeah.
because you can get so much valuable information from the other side of a successful audition.
It's a
Absolutely.
working relationship, and I agree with you 100%. Let me ask you this here. A lot of times, and again, not just with rounders, anything, something you may have been in before, and as actors and actresses know, you can come out and like you said, you can nail it, you can kill it, everything's going good. You're like, I can't wait to get to the movies. Oh, it's just going to be great. And then all of a sudden, you find out some of, as they call it, the cutting room floor. What is that like to, see that put in that work and then find out it's not there, but still be happy for your other coworkers? And then how do you deal with that? And can you speak to any of your scenes that maybe were cut without breaking any type of, G14 classified rule?
Right. That happens a lot. It really happens a lot. It did happen on Rounders. I had some scenes with Michael Rispoli, who played Grandma. I love Michael. He is such a dear. I can't tell you what a sweetheart he is. And I had a lot of scenes with him that were cut for time. And when we were shooting them, I was like, oh, these are kind of superfluous. It's kind of saying the same thing, or like Matt Damon's character would come back without Ed Norton's character, and then we were sort of in there and having a lot of conversation. But I was thinking in the back of my mind, well, I don't know how this really fits in. So I was surprised that they were left out, but then I wasn't surprised afterwards. So it happens more times than I can tell you.
All right, so now these are your words, not mine, so don't sue me here. She says she can skank it up. Now, I did hear that, correct? Now, so I have to ask, were you one take Tasha? The one take Tasha is when you nail it the first time. How many times did you guys have to do you want to twirl? Like, how many times did the twirl? See, how many times did you have to go through that?
Well, okay, so because it was such a long day, and we did quite a few scenes in that day, and it was probably the 15th hour. It was really crazy, and they did first did point of view from Matt Damon and Ed Norton, and so they did their parts, and then they turned back to do my point of view, and I have to say to you that Matt Damon could not have been more amazing. I mean, a lot of times when you're that big of a star, when they turn around, they have like stand-ins for you. They don't stay. They don't stay. He made sure to stay because he wanted to give me his emotion and feedback from what I was doing. So it wasn't a ton of takes. It was also absolutely freezing and I was pretty much naked. So he was so protective of me. I can't tell you, like, every time I would be shivering like this, just shivering. My fingers were blue, my lips were turning blue, and in between every take he'd be like, get her a sweater, get her a robe, somebody get her hand warmers, bring her some tea. He was so worried about me. It was the sweetest thing. So yeah, it wasn't tons of takes. It was probably like an hour for that particular scene, but it hurt because it was really cold and I was really
Pulled it off.
And shout out to the makeup artist. I mean, I did not. I'm looking. I'm waiting on her to show up. I don't know who you are, but that is not the same person. So shout out to the makeup artist. Goodness grief.
I can't help but notice that there's two gentlemen in the scene that shares the scene with you. You bring up that Matt Damon was excellent. Sometimes there's implications in the things that you don't say. So Edward Norton, and I want to preface this with saying I love Edward Norton since Primal Fear. You know, yes. I Lost Time to American History X and
yes.
everything beyond. I mean, he is a fantastic actor in everything he's in, but it is fairly well known that he isn't the easiest to get along with on set. In Birdman, with his character, they even blurred that line of reality a little bit, and which makes me think that even he knows this and kind of has a sense of humor about it. But what is it? What was it the experience like working with Edward Norton?
I would say he is a true talent. He is one of our finest actors. And I will also say that he is a challenge. That is probably all I will say. And who knows why? You know, people are people. We all have our issues, right? He was very professional. I will say that. But he's a challenge. I will say that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's good enough there.
Thank you. On that. Yeah. And I don't want this to be a judgment on Edward Norton in any way. Still go watch his movies.
I mean, he has like 7 posters of Ed in his home. He still calls him Ed, so don't worry about it. I did want to ask about one thing. Of course, the director John Dahl has worked on so many projects that I've seen that I love myself personally. You're talking about many episodes of Justified, Californication, the Americans. We talked about Dexter, Homeland, Shameless. I mean, you name it. Now, I mean, Breaking Bad and True Blood. Goodness graciousness, man. Oh, Suki Stackhouse.
He has his hands in so much television. Like, so much of my life has been spent watching him without realizing it.
Yes. Oh, yes. So could you tell us what it was like working with him on the process and things like that?
I mean, it's pretty much what I was saying before. He was extremely accessible. He knows exactly what he wants. He's also a director that sometimes you can be on set and a director gets so in your head, like it's almost as if they don't know how to speak to an actor because it's your heart is on your sleeve. And if you're told like you're doing it wrong, a lot of times you can sometimes feel really bad and get in your head about it and just have a really bad day. And he has a way of communicating with an actor that makes you feel good about yourself. So even if he wants you to do it a different way, like, you don't take it personally, you don't feel judged, you don't feel like you're doing a bad job. You feel like he trusts you to be able to do it and take the note. And so you trust yourself. So it's a gift. It's a true gift. Not everybody has that.
Like I say, it's rare. Just like you said with Edward Norton, one thing working with him was a challenge, but it's night and day from what I'm hearing with him. Like, because most people expect when you're working with directors for it to be a challenge, but you're saying he's the exception, not the norm, and for a good reason.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with, many people like that. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but when somebody is, I mean, I've seen it happen to actors on set where I think to myself, oh, I feel so bad for them because I know what's going on. Like they're feeling like they're just stinking it up, and the director's not communicating in a way that makes them feel confident to do their job. They're communicating in a way that makes them feel really self-conscious and bad. So he's just one of those that's like very uplifting. That's what I took away from him. And his great gift of, giving me the note of like strong choices and stuff. Like it was very memorable for me.
So Rounders is drenched in talent, like extremely talented actors between John Turturro, John Malkovich, and then you got Matt Damon, Edward Norton at their prime, or actually like fresh off their prime from, you know, movies like Primal Fear and Good Will Hunting. But there's, you know, so many people. Meet Martin Landau. I mean, I can go on. There's so many people in this movie. What was your fondest memory working on the production?
I really just have to say how kind people were, how it was at the pinnacle of Matt Damon's career, and John Dahl being who he was, that it was such an open feeling set, and that you really felt like you were in good hands and taken care of. And it doesn't always happen, especially with that amount and caliber of talent that you just mentioned. Sometimes, you know, it can be a little bit like I had mentioned before, like you're sort of infringing on that, or you're not, you know, you're at a different level than they
Yeah.
are. There was none of that feeling. There was no hierarchy feeling or like you weren't worthy or something like that. Everyone was on equal ground. So that's what I walked away with from that. That's my favorite memory of it.
Find us in all these links. It's coming up right now.
That's the trailer.